Hello, welcome to this short webcast on storytelling for hiring success. I am Rohan. I am joining you from Mumbai. Hope the weather is good in your city and you're generally having a good day so far. We want to keep it interesting and interactive for this session. We'll be having this session for next 30 minutes or so. We'll cover the subject matter in 15 to 20 minutes and keep the rest of the time for question and answers. We received some questions during the registration, so we'll be answering those. But we would be also answering questions from you, the audience. And as people keep trickling in, it's good to see. I see some old familiar names as well. Welcome to all of you. That's pretty much it. Nothing more really in terms of rules. Please feel free to ask questions. Now, I'm happy to see the participation. We expect more people to come in. But I just want to make sure that there are real people who are joining in, who are watching this webinar from their computer screens. So here's the thing. Let me ask you a question. All right. Now, according to you, what's the purpose of storytelling in hiring? Okay. And these are your options. So although this is not like KBC, but let's say if it's like KBC. Okay. These are your four options basically to entertain candidates, to have a fun experience, to showcase the expertise and reputation of your organization, to make the process very relatable, to convince the candidate that it's a smart decision to join your organization. What do you think is the right, or what do you think is the most suitable when it comes to storytelling for hiring? Please answer in the chat box. Let me give you 30 seconds to do that. So all the people who are joining in, this is the question. What, as per you, is the purpose of storytelling in hiring? So in KBC style, these are your four options. So I request everybody who's participating, let me know that you're alive there behind a computer screen and not just logged in and went away, right? Because we love having people around. Then we do webinars, right? Okay, people keep trickling in. I'm going to be admitting everybody who's coming in. For everybody who's coming in, please answer this question. What do you think should be the answer? And leave that in the chat box. What is the purpose of storytelling in hiring? Out of these four options. Okay, I get some responses. Let me see the responses. All options, Ashika, not really. Vivin said 2 and 3. Okay, not both. Same with Sumitra. Komal says 3. Okay, interesting. Let me see. Let those keep those answers coming. What do you think is the purpose of storytelling in hiring? Come on, folks. It's just what we need to understand. What you think about this? So, Saurabh says 2. Okay. Vashish says 2. All right. Rimsha says 2. Okay. Sorry, Rimsha, if I not pronounce your name right. 4, 2, 3, 4. No, it's just KBC style. KBC, you have to choose one answer, right? So it's KBC style. So there are no two answers. 4, okay. Manjusha says 3. Kavita says 4. Revati says 3, okay. All right, cool. So the answer is 3, okay. It's essentially the process of storytelling is to humanize your hiring. And what do you mean by humanize? It could mean a lot of myriad things, but essentially is to create a very relatable, personalized, engaging experience. And communication plays a big role in this process. So as I promised, we will be keeping this very interesting and interactive. But before that, some basic things we would want you to know what we do. So we are a small team of business storytellers. We essentially use principles of design thinking to help our organizations or clients create a culture of storytelling. Broadly speaking, we help in four areas: leadership storytelling, sales storytelling, HR storytelling, and brand storytelling. So these are the four areas that we primarily help our organizations. So we are your today's speakers. I am Rohan, as I mentioned in the beginning. I started my journey when after my engineering, I did my MBA in marketing. Post that was in 2007. I worked with various organizations in the capacity of marketing and sales. At one point in my career, I just felt that I had a more creative calling. So in 2016, I started this company. I started it as a production house, and I was soon joined by Mandar, who happens to be my MBA colleague, and he's a second speaker on this call today. Personally, we are all kicked about storytelling, and I believe that storytelling is as much a science as it is art. All right. So I let Mandar, our second speaker, introduce ourselves before we get on.
Thank you, Rohan. And I extend a welcome to all our participants today. Thanks for dropping in. To keep it short, similar to Rohan, I also come from an engineering background. We were classmates in our MBA marketing days. My corporate experience has been primarily with IMRB International in market research brand tracking. As a consultant, I had a company post that which helped organizations to launch happiness and mindfulness initiatives for their workforce. And in my third stint with Rohan, I have been spearheading the learning and consulting assignments in this organization. So that's a brief introduction. And again, I welcome you all to this short webcast, and we would love to have your answers. Your questions in the chat box if you have not already submitted those.
All right. So, Mandar, so what we're going to do, Mandar, between me and Mandar today is that we are giving it a twist. So what I'm going to do is we're going to present you two scenarios of a hiring process. Okay. And you will decide which one is better. So I'll let Mandar take you through the first process. Mandar.
Great. So you all HR folks, you have been hiring for years together. And I hope the scenario that I present to you today will try to simulate as close as possible the traditional hiring that happens in most organizations. Let's take a character. Let's name him Ajay. Now he's into digital marketing, always looking at new opportunities, right? That's what people do, take up multiple offers, look at multiple opportunities to grow their career. Now, let's say what happens one day is he sees a job posting, LinkedIn, Naukri, he sees a great job posting from a company, but he has somehow never heard of that company before. This is a new organization for him, no brand recognition. So what he does is he just applies on that job portal. He tries to visit the website, all wondering, what is going to happen next. That's what typically happens, right? These people who are not looking for a great opportunity, they apply to 50, 60 positions a day. There's no sense of belonging with any opening. They randomly keep clicking. This is a good job opening. This is my location. This is where I want to shift. This is where my wife is shifting. This is a good package. Keep clicking on all of those. That's what it does. Next, what happens is, there's a silence. And after a few weeks, he receives an automated email that, we have received your application. There are these other openings in our organization. Again, no emotional connect is established with this person. After that, radio silence. A long time, and he doesn't hear anything from the TA team, nothing from the organization. He's wondering what's happened. One fine day, he wakes up, and while checking his WhatsApp messages, he gets this sudden notification from an HR of that organization saying that, he needs to attend a telephonic interview. When he joins the interview after a couple of days, he realizes it's a very typical interview. What are your achievements? Tell me something about yourself. What are your expectations? How early can you join? All that typical grind, right? Now he starts waiting again. What's the next step? When am I going to hear back? So he's promised an in-person interview somewhere very close. That too happens, a very robotic interview, very typical exchanges. What are your strengths? How can you bring value to our organization? Firstly, why are you shifting your job? Why are you not happy with your current organization? Why are you shifting after 1 year? Why are you shifting after 5 years? All of these questions. Then after a few weeks, he gets an email where he says, no, provide us some references. And you know what he feels like? He feels like a baggage on a conveyor belt that's thrown by an airline operator from one belt to the other, from one position to the other. No face, no interaction, no belongingness, just being thrown from one belt to the other, transferred from one position to the other. Now, finally, after a few weeks, he gets an offer, and then he is elated to get the offer. He joins. And when the induction happens, again, it's a very routine, typical induction. All the HODs coming up with these glorious plans that they have for the next 10 years, what is going to be there in tech revolution and how this organization is going to grow. That's a typical scenario in hiring, right? Now, can you all help me to understand in one word, how would you label this candidate experience? Just one word, please. Don't make it even two. Just type one word in the chat box to help us understand what this candidate has gone through. What is in his mind as a prime feeling?
We're getting some interesting answers. So Saurabh says worst. Sumitra says disengaged. Okay. Ambiguity, disengagement. Okay, ambiguity.
Okay, can we have some more answers? In school, our teachers used to tell us write an essay, and then I was always the one to back out. I don't want to write an essay, but fill in the blank, I'll be the first. So come on,
Regular.
folks, give us at least one word, fill in the blank.
So Mandar, Amit says regular. Okay, so that means this is very regular experience. Okay, usual. Okay, hectic. Oh, that's interesting. So Kavita says it's
I think hectic for the person applying because he's doing this with at least 8 or 10 companies at the same time. So it's hectic not just for the HR, but it's also hectic for the person who's applying.
Yeah, maybe that's a very normal mainstream experience, I guess. Vivashish says reality. Oh, okay, that's reality. Okay, that's happening to a large number of people. Yes, more guys. What's your in one word this experience for the people who've just joined and who've caught up on some bit of this? Before we go to the next scenario, uninteresting by Sanchari. Okay, yeah, it is. I agree. It's uninteresting. If I were to be Ajay, I wouldn't be particularly kicked about this. Okay, folks. So let us show you scenario number 2. Okay, this is about Aditya. Same guy, same. Let's consider for the sake of level playing field. He's a digital marketer. Same experience, etc. Now, what he does is one day he sees a LinkedIn job post by this company called ABC Tech, right? And this post actually narrates the experience of one guy called Ravi, who's already an employee in the marketing team of that ABC Tech, right? He loves the post. He's able to understand what this guy goes through, and he loves the comments that he sees there. Then he does one thing. He says, "Okay, let me go and check out about this company more because he's now sufficiently become interested." So he goes to their career site, and then he finds it's filled with these stories of real employees, and these stories are about different things. Like some of them are about stories that talk about the culture of the organization, how what values and how those values were actually felt by employees in their subjective personal experience, maybe how they grew in the organization, what's the mentorship like, what's the learning like, etc., etc. Right? He sees all that, and now he thinks he should apply. Right? Okay, so he does that. As soon as he applies, he receives an email from Simran. Simran is the head of talent acquisition. She introduces herself and she shares a story about her own self as to how her journey was when she joined ABC Tech, right? Um, then, after a week or so, he receives an invitation now from his hiring manager called Raman. Raman, during his interaction, recounts that he joined this organization 5 years back, as a junior marketer, and then he advanced rapidly. He was given good opportunities. He received mentorship of his senior managers, and he really progressed in his role. Then he also asked Aditya to name out or to narrate his experiences in his or his let's say experiences in his previous jobs. What were his big moments, small moments? How did he solve certain challenges, etc., etc. So there is this interaction that happens. Now, after this, Aditya, being a very bright candidate, he progresses. He's sufficiently impressed, and people think that he could be a good fit. Here he is asked to present a marketing campaign idea, but not just an idea. He's also, I think somebody is on, yeah, kindly put yourselves on mute. And whenever you have to speak, then you can unmute yourself. Just make sure you're on mute. So it's not just a presentation on campaign idea. He's asked to imagine a future scenario when he's already with the organization and he's working on a certain campaign and what his contribution looks like. He's asked to narrate that, right? So he does that. He's asked to do that. Again, this goes really well, smooth like butter. He's then asked to come over to the office premises, spend some time with his future colleagues, get to know what kind of work they do. He's taken to a tour office, a guided tour, so to speak, by the HR BP and maybe his team, and he also has some casual time with his teammates in the canteen, in the pantry, wherever. And then he finally receives his offer letter, but it's not just a emailed letter. He receives a package. This package has a private message from the CEO. It's got this a nice small booklet on company history. There is this even a bookmark that he can use with his name on it, right? So he sees that and he wasn't expecting it, so he receives it. Then he joins ABC Tech. He then comes into induction. So induction is the usual stuff about where the company is heading. But additionally, the L&D manager in charge, he also conducts a very intellectual exercise, stimulating exercise on which helps Aditya see that as an individual contributor, he contributes and he has a certain perspective. But as he goes up the chain, he looks at from a team's perspective, from the department's perspective, from the organization's perspective, how does things look like? How do things look like, right? How do the challenges appear like? What kind of challenges need cross collaboration, team spirit, all of that? And he really comes out being stimulated, being charged up by this. Now, this is his experience. Again, we'll do the same thing, folks. Give me one sentence, not sorry, sentence, one word on how this experience was. Be imaginative, whatever you want to feel like. Give me one in the chat box. Keep it coming. Okay, Komal says personal. Okay, folks, keep it coming. What's it like? What do you think? You didn't like this? Feel free to say that as well. Okay, we are completely okay. You don't get offended. This is a world of ideas, so no idea is good. Engaged, okay? Says Sanchari. Personalized, okay, yeah, that comes across. Enthusiastic. Okay, enthusiastic. Okay, that's valued. Sumitra says valued. I think enthusiastic. Rekha said enthusiastic. Energized, yes. Energized, okay. How would you describe it in one word? Fabulous. Fabulous. Okay, cool. So now, so there's clearly how do you move to this? So if you think you are on scenario one and you want to move to scenario two, what is it that you can do? So I'll have Mandar talk about this.
Great. Now that we have, core impression in our mind, and that's how core impressions work. One word is what works actually, right? When you meet someone, when you watch a movie, when you get a new car, one word is what describes it. So we had one word for both. And now we have something which we typically use in all our learning and consulting interventions. All our storytelling, business storytelling is based on design thinking. which you know is a very human-centric approach to provide any product or service-based solution. Now, to make this experience very personalized or valued, like you said, we need to look at the first step, which is about empathizing with what is the persona of the candidate. What is his fear in life? What is his expectation? What are his aspirations? Where does he come from? His demographics, his psychographics. Once you start empathizing with whom you are trying to hire on your team, it becomes much easier to look at what action can I take? What are the touch points where I can narrate a story to him? What does he want to achieve in life? Once we are able to empathize with him, discover all these things, the next step is to understand how can we structure all of this in something called as divergent thinking in design thinking. So divergent thinking means we structure this entire problem statement in a how might we format, where you have a stakeholder, you have a purpose, and you have a method of doing it. And once you have all these things in place, your entire story narrative is broken up into smaller parts, like who's the protagonist, what is the conflict, what is the resolution, what's the call to action, and what is the effectiveness parameter that you want to embed in a story or a narrative, right? Because as a HR person, whenever you float a story or a narrative to take a future talent in your organization, the most important thing is the effectiveness of your narrative, right? Because you cannot just keep creating narratives and investing in developing those stories if you're not able to track the effectiveness. And to make sure that it's effective, you need to choose an appropriate format. So it can be a video, a LinkedIn article, a town hall, small group meeting. So all of these avenues which can be chosen as a narrative style for the story. So these 5 steps will cover all the bases, which finally will lead to the effectiveness metrics.
Right. And so clearly now you must be thinking, how do we connect this to hiring effectiveness, right? Now, again, the caveat here is although storytelling influences different metrics, there are a whole lot of other factors that also influence your outcomes, right? So that caveat is something that we need to put here. But having said it, so time to fill, right? If more number of your potential candidates find your job description, your company, your employer brand attractive, you probably have lesser time to fill a particular opening, right? Quality of hires. The more accurate you are with terms of the qualitative mindset of your future hire, the better it is, right? So you'll attract the right kind of people. If your workforce or your work culture is about being very transparent and brutally honest, you would want to attract that kind of people. Candidate satisfaction is very important because if you do this, you need to go and ask the horse, right? It needs to come from the horse's mouth. So a small survey with your people who joined the organization, how did they feel through? So what was their experience in their subjective view will really help you understand whether you're on the right track with storytelling. Early turnover rates. So once they come in, they're recruited, they're onboarded, they've been communicated with constantly. It's very personal with them. There's a higher probability they'll stick around, right? So you'll have lesser dropouts in the first, say, 6 months to 1 year, right? That can be avoided. Employer brand awareness is very crucial. It goes actually to the beginning. It's the fountain. So the better your employer brand is, the better workforce you're able to attract. You have a very strong employer value proposition to attract them, right? And that's essentially a very good area for storytelling to play. Diversity and inclusion. You want a very diverse and inclusive pool of candidates. You need to show that, and not just say it, but show it through stories. So these are some of the broad metrics where storytelling can hit. Again, as I said, the caveat is that there are other factors which influence these beyond storytelling. All right. So how we can help you, right? So all this design thinking process that you saw, we can do this for your talent acquisition and hiring teams through something that we call a storytelling dive camp. It's a 1-day camp for your talent acquisition hiring teams. It's a collaborative exercise, typically for mid to senior manager levels, and you can see the participants. This is actually a cross-business dive camp, but we can make it customized for talent acquisition. So we can get your heads together and brainstorm about how we can storyfy or embed stories in a hiring process. So we do this through a storytelling dive camp, which is a very structured program. But beyond that, we also have 2 other offerings, which is a storytelling base camp, which is for entry level employees who want for whom you want to broaden their perspective about what an organization is, right? Because entry level people normally have just their own perspective. They just see it from their perspective. If they don't get a raise, it's they're immediately disoriented because they don't understand the organizational perspective. So it's a base camp, and lead camp is for CXOs. CXOs need to project a certain strategic vision. They need to build trust with their stakeholders, etc. So we cover that in this. So again, these are the learning interventions that we have designed based on the principles of design thinking. These are one-day camps, as well as they're present in virtual format. So we do this both in person and virtual. All right. So we'll take some questions, some of the questions that we received. Over to you, Manda.
Thanks, Rohan. Also, I'm dropping a link in the chat box if you want to provide any feedback. This is a very short webcast as always, but we would love to hear your views on how it was and whether it added value to your day or not. We received almost 32 questions. So sorry, we will not be able to take up all of those, but we'll definitely get back on email to all of those who have shared their questions. One interesting question that we received was from Alamelu Vaidyanathan, who is heading L&D at Maxwell. And his question was, when and how do we highlight the challenges that come with a job, especially when you're hiring for startups or brands which are not established? So thanks, Alamelu, for your question. Quite a tricky one, I would admit. But for a new brand, it's very important, I would say, to match your values with the candidate that you're hiring. Because anyone who's joining a startup is someone who has a certain dream that he has personally nurtured, right? So a good opportunity to share a story would be an interview with the hiring manager, right? When you're meeting him face to face and a final round, probably. That is where you can share and help him understand how his values and goals align with that of your startup. Because a lot of people look for safety, they go for established brands. If this person is willing to take up a job in a startup, he definitely is open to that exposure, to that bumpy ride, or to that amazing future that you dream together. So I think that's an area where you can share that story. Another interesting question that we got was from Rekha from Pratham. Rekha asked us what should be the long-term goal of HR teams to create a positive, loyal, and productive workforce. I think that's a dream come true. Who doesn't want it all in one go? And what should be the role of HR in this entire process from hiring to? Thanks for the question. From a business storytelling perspective, what I would like to say in just a quick highlight is, I think the biggest goal that you should have is how do you inculcate a feeling of belongingness with your brand, with the candidate, right? That should be your ultimate goal. So that even if he leaves after, let's say, 3-4 years, he will definitely refer someone or he might come back to your brand. So your goal should always be to build that bridge, that feeling of belongingness. And secondly, make sure that this person grows when he's in the organization. What kind of customized learning journeys are designed for him? How does the organization make sure that his upskilling is taken care of, so that he's in tune with whatever is the best for him to perform and to contribute. So these are a couple of points that I think which we can address through business storytelling for your candidates.
Right. I'll take the next question. It's from Ashim. And before I take it, so guys, if you have any question, kindly leave it in the chat box. From Ashim Chakrabarti, he's from Finolex, India. And he asked, art of storytelling to enhance employer brand. So as I mentioned, Ashim, that employer brand is storytelling's favorite football ground, right? So employer brand is what? Is essentially goes back to what your employer value proposition is. So those 3 or 4 things that stand for what you are as a company and why anybody should work for you. If you got that figured out, right? Storytelling can really help you. In fact, storytelling can also help you to figure that EVP out. So your first is your EVP. Once you know your EVP, if you already have your EVP, then all you have to do is what kind of story should we tell? Because that EVP will have certain value statements, certain mottos, right? Certain vision. What kind of stories can we tell? What kind of people can we recruit as characters in those stories? We can look at all of that. So it will require a roadmap. So in short, that is what we can do. It can be done through customer success stories, employee testimonials, You can show behind the scenes of a certain project that happens. So those things will happen. Um, the next question is from Komal Nadimkar from Apollo Pharmacy. And she says, what is the meaning of storytelling? To tell stories or to share stories? This is a thin line we need to address. Great question. So storytelling is both telling stories and sharing stories. Of course, you could say that I can share somebody else's stories, but when you create a story, you craft a narrative. You shape the perspective of somebody else, of your audience. And hence, story creation is essential for storytelling because that gives you the power over the narrative. And narratives everything, as you have seen, be it the world of geopolitics, politics, domestic politics, anywhere, right? So I think it's both, and for that you need both the competencies. You need to know how to craft a story, but you also need people who can help you produce those stories. So that's my quick answer. Maybe we have a question. Let me see. It's from Annie Matthew. I would like to ask, enabling employees to be culturally aligned with organization. What kind of initiative steps as HR should we consider? Oh boy, that's a very deep question, Annie. It could span a lot of different things. If you have to enable employees to be culturally aligned, first of all, you need to know what your culture is. How does that culture translate into specific behaviors? I think that transition is important. If you know the behaviors, again, these behaviors will be a function of a person's specific job role and his seniority. So if you can derive those culture into behaviors, then we can create stories to enable those behaviors, right? We can share stories of people who have displayed those cultural values in their day-to-day job. We can have leaders who can speak about these cultural values, how they can be imbibed, how they have imbibed. So there are a host of things you can do, and it's a very huge topic in itself. But for now, I would say look at how do cultural values translate to behaviors, specific behaviors, right? And then make stories for that. So that would be my 2 cents on this. But we have to wind this up because, as I said, we are very strict about the time. We want to keep it nice and short. We want to make sure that it's efficient for everybody. So I would like to thank all you folks, fine folks, for coming here. We will be sharing this presentation with you on after the call. But we would also urge you to leave us a feedback. You really, I mean, this means a lot to us. And most of all you HR people know what feedback means. So kindly leave the feedback. Mandar has given the link in the chat box. Kindly use that link to give your feedback. Uh, if you want to specifically ask us about the storytelling camps for talent acquisition, hiring, etc., you can reach us at storytelling@rohanpoddar.com, or you can WhatsApp on this number. So if you want to keep it very conversational, light, we understand that you can WhatsApp us, or you want to raise a specific query, email us, and we'll be very happy to answer. You can visit our website. So I think that's for now. I want to thank all those people who made time. Is there anything else from your end, Mandal?
No, nothing. I think Annie, thanks for sharing this question. It was fantastic. Again, Rohan shared a lot, and we would love to connect with you to discuss this further. But one thing that I like, very similar to what Rohan shared, it's very important that the values and the culture that you put down in a document and in a fancy booklet or on some glass wall, stories cannot be about that. Stories need to be about specific instances and behaviors, uh, or sometimes what your external stakeholders feel this was exhibited as a behavior, not just your internal stakeholders. So that would be the true success of how you measure whether the culture has gone deep down and trickled down or not. So if you are able to capture stories where your external stakeholders can validate that they experience this as a value from your employees and your workforce, I think that would be the best. That's a small suggestion from my end, but we would love to chat more on this, and we'll connect with you shortly.
All right. Thank you, folks. Have a wonderful Friday evening. Have a wonderful weekend as well. And we'll see you on another webcast on another Friday. So keep tuned and we'll try and get you good stuff. When you leave the feedback, also make a suggestions on the topics you would like to hear with respect to storytelling, of course, and how we can add. We are very much here to add value. Kindly leave your feedback, is once again I'll tell you, because we would really love to know if this made sense to you, or did you think that this was just a waste of your time. right? Thank you so much, all you guys, for coming here again, and have a wonderful peace.
Thank you so much.